Well, hello, everybody, and we think we did this right. And welcome to the Pain Sucks podcast. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Matt Malonis, and I have an amazing guest with me today. Mandy Leonards is with us, and this was like divine appointment that we're doing this today, and I love it, and I'm so excited to learn from you. Just even in our little pre-post. Oh, can you hear that? Let me turn that down. In our pre-chat, I was already learning from her. And so I hope that everybody gets just an amazing benefit as to what's going to happen today. So I want to tell you, so again, we started this Pain Sucks podcast because of an injury I went through 5 years ago. And what I've discovered over the last 5 years of learning how to help people in my practice and even myself is that there just isn't one good place where people can go and have their questions answered, whether it's about pain management through like what we're going to talk today through our mind, or whether it was physical therapy, chiropractic, medicine, whatever it was. The goal then with this podcast, Mandy, is that we can get one place where people can go, does CBD work? Oh, I'll listen to this. And so today I'm really excited because everything starts in the mind. And one of the things I wanted to get across to everybody before we start is this idea that our mind has the ability to do anything to our actual human body. And one of the things I learned about 3 months into my journey, 4 or 5 years ago, was that I had got things backwards and wired incorrectly. And so my mind was actually not in control of my healing because I was so stressed and so emotionally distraught and I was beat up. And here we are years later, and now I've learned about that and I've kind of understood the science behind it. But then when we started interacting, and I think it was literally just, maybe if we're just being transparent, you might have posted like, today sucks and am I ever going to get through this or something like that. And I had no idea that, that you were a psychotherapist dealing with people with pain management and stuff. And I was just like, you'll get through. And that started our relationship. And so here we are today. So anyways, I want to introduce Mandy Leonards. Got a great private practice down in the Indiana area. We've interacted, we've got to know each other. And I know that today is going to be a ton of value for people, but I think let's start off with your story because I think your story is powerful. Now, before you start, I can see the Facebook comments coming in, none yet, but if people have comments, you want to ask a question, go ahead and do that. I can see that, Mandy. If it's like something we need to answer right now, I'll stop you and we'll do that. You might be able to see them if you're looking at the page on your phone or another computer, and feel free to answer. Otherwise, I promise between one of us, we will go through and answer every question before we're done today. So maybe not while we're live, but maybe later we'll just address that. So listen, I'm fascinated with your story because you're just coming out of that dark place, like the last 5-6 months. And you were sharing with me today that like you're out running again. And in a world where most people think that this is the rest of their life, yep. You've defied that and said, that's not going to happen. So tell us your story.
All right. Thanks, Matt, for having me. And so to start off, I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the Indianapolis area. And I'm trained in mental health. That's what I went to school for. I've been working it for over a decade. And I'm also a competitive age group athlete. Age group meaning I don't get paid to do sport. I pay to do it. But I runner and triathlete. So I swim, bike, run. I'm new to triathlon, not so new to running, but I have been doing this for fun, as people think it's funny, for a long time. And long story short, I was having a great season, great year, like literally was like checking off personal records left, right, like smashing, took, I think we remember, I want to say I took off 40 minutes off my marathon time last year, like crazy, right? Like who does that, right? And I couldn't believe I did it. I still can't believe I did it. I like, especially right now, because I'm not
huge.
Yeah. So just crushing PRs, had a great winter training indoors because we live in Indiana. That had a great winter of training. I traveled to California in March and did a triathlon camp with my awesome team here in Indianapolis. And then I did my first big race of the season that was planned, was in Chattanooga, Tennessee in May. So May 19th, and went down to Chattanooga, swam, a mile in the river, biked 56 miles of hills and ran a half marathon back to back. 5.5 hours was my time. PR again. I felt great. I got off my, it was hot. It was like 95 degrees. That was my only about that race.
I'd have stayed inside.
Yeah, I felt sick. I felt physically fine. I literally got off my bike or out of the run, no pain. I was literally woke up the next day barely sore because I had trained so well. So I always preface that when I tell people about my story, because I was in like top physical condition going into this injury. And so when you say like, oh, she's running again, I'm not advocating for anybody to just like, Mandy's running again. That means I can go running. Like,
sure. Oh, you're absolutely right.
So I always preface that because I'm like, yes, I can do this. And yes, that means that you can do something too. But that doesn't mean you should go, try to run a mile tomorrow just because I did. Okay. So I always preface that because I was in really good shape before. But that being said, I woke up 2 weeks later and had leg pain. And I'm like, this is weird, and I'm like, I must have done something to my hamstring, and I had been resting a lot those 2 weeks. I hadn't been running much. I had been going to hot yoga like every day, had been swimming a little bit. And I went to my chiropractor. I have an amazing sports chiropractor I've been seeing for several years on a regular basis. Allisonville Integrative Health, if they're here. Hi. I did tell them to be on
everybody.
So, and Dr. Drew Hoffman is my doctor there. And, he worked on me a little bit. And he's like, Mandy, at that point, my mobility was still good. Strength was great and all that. He's like, you probably have some inflammation, built up from the race. Who knows? Well, did some stuff. And then, a couple days later, I literally opened my front door, walked out the front door, tripped on the step, kind of did like a jerky little motion. And when I did that, I couldn't get up. And when I immediately stood up, I immediately had shooting pain down the right side of my body that I had never felt before in my 37 years of life. I sat like literally kind of like was on the ground thinking to myself, I don't know what to do because I'm supposed to get my kids from camp. That was literally my first thought, right? I have to pick up my kids from camp.
It's that moment of paralysis almost, right? Where you're like, I don't even know what to do now.
No, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I was just like, I have to pick up the girls from camp. I mean, it was like this crazy thing. So long story short, I, called Drew, my chiropractor. I'm like, what did I do? And he's like, well, worst case scenario, it's your disc. He knew over the talking to me. He's like, best case scenario, it's just sciatica inflammation. He's like, come see me in the morning. I'll be able to tell you in 5 seconds. And I'm like, I can't move. I don't know if I can come see you tomorrow morning. He recommended I call my doctor and get started on an oral steroid just to try to because he knows me. My goals were not to take like the slow bus. My goals are, I'm sitting there talking to him on the phone going, but I have a 2-hour run tomorrow, Drew. Like, that was literally,
he knows you want back out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I literally was like, can I do my run this weekend? And he's like, no. So I went to see him the next day on the weekend because he came in for that and knew within 2 seconds that it was my disc. I couldn't lift just to kind of give anybody who may be listening, I couldn't lift my leg. When you can go, this because you're a chiropractor, when they lay you on your back and they do like the leg up in the air thing, mine barely could get up off the table without, like, it just wouldn't go. Even with pain, it wouldn't go. I couldn't go up on my toes. I couldn't go up on my heels. I couldn't sit unless you wanted me to be screaming and like screaming, not just like ow, 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 but like, oh my God, I'm going to die kind of pain.
And there's two of us here right now talking that are like, people are probably thinking you wimps, like, and I'm like, I remember standing in the sno at every red light the day it happened to me in a snowstorm because I couldn't sit and people looking at me so weird, but you just don't, you can't get it. It's so painful.
I will tell you guys, I have been through child labor. I have been in labor. And I would have that was nothing compared to this pain. I literally was laying, once I like crawled kind of, I have hardwood floors in my house, if you can see behind me. And the only comfortable position I could be in was on my stomach, but on the hard floor, not on the couch, not on the hard floor, on my stomach. And even that took time for it to like kind of let the pain die down. So I went for an MRI, blah, 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 blah. It was L5S1
Yeah,
herniation.
common. Yeah.
Yeah, L5S1. And it was obviously my nerve was, it was in pretty compressed. It was a 10 millimeter ish, I think, roughly herniation, pretty large.
That's large. Yeah.
The rest of my back looked good. So, but it was this really nasty one that decided to play. So my whole right leg was numb from the top of my butt cheek all the way down to the tips of my toes, was like pins and needles. I literally went in, I think like the second or third week I was into this, and I told Drew that I felt like Kim Kardashian. If you guys know who Kim Kardashian is, the actress who's had like butt implants.
Explain.
Yeah, so she's had butt implants. Like,
okay, that's how you felt?
Like it felt huge. Like I literally would, every time I would like come by a mirror, I'd like look to make sure because it felt so big.
Yeah.
But it was so numb. I mean, I couldn't feel anything. I mean, I could kind of tell when somebody had like their hand on my leg, but it was not, it was pins and needles. I could walk, but it was kind of like a shuffle drag type of thing. So
it sounds to me like what you're describing, just for people that are listening too, is like, this wasn't a little run of the mill thing. Like clearly you don't like to do anything small. So you went all in on your herniation as well. Like, let me just destroy everything and then go to the highest level of symptomatology.
Pretty much.
When did you say to yourself, or maybe with Drew's help, Dr. Drew, when did you say to yourself, like, oh crap, this might be like a long haul thing. Like, this isn't like next week better thing.
So Drew made me go get a surgical consult because he didn't want to make anything. I mean, I respected that, he's like, we need to make sure that we can fix this. So, I went to somebody he referred me to, Indiana Spine Group. They're a very big practice here in Indianapolis. So I got in to see them very quickly. And part of that, I will say, I know I've heard some people who have trouble getting in to see providers. And mine was, here I am. I'm like, I want to run. I want to swim. I want to bike. I want to run. And
want my life back.
And I want my life back because for me, some people think, well, Mandy, I just want to be able to walk. And I don't discount that at all. I was having trouble walking too, guys. I mean, I couldn't drive myself to any of these appointments. I had to have a ride, and I was laying on my stomach in the car to get to these places. So it wasn't just that. I couldn't sit at the dinner table. I couldn't sit on the couch. I couldn't take my kids to and from places. I have very busy kids. I have my oldest daughter plays competitive soccer. She has practice like 5 days a week, and I couldn't drive her. And my husband travels for a living. He is never home. So I literally was like, he had to take a couple weeks off work just to help. And that doesn't work well in our life. So, but at the same time, sport is a huge part of my life. And so they, all my providers knew that. And so they did help me get in to see people quicker than I think some do. I'm not afraid to advocate for myself. When I called my primary care physician, they were like, oh, we'll just give it a couple weeks and see how it feels. And I was like, no, thanks. So, right. They weren't even going to call me in the MRI. And just so everybody knows, at least here in Indianapolis, chiropractors can order an MRI. And so that's who got, that's who ordered mine. So we knew what we were dealing with. So I said thank you to my PCP and moved on. So you just have to be able to advocate for that. Once I got in to see the surgeon, I'm still shocked by this, to be honest with you, because I could barely walk in there. I think I was in like a dissociative state of pain. And he assessed me and he was like, let's give it a couple, a few weeks and see how you respond to conservative medicine. I'm looking at him like he has 17 heads. And I am somebody that will, I don't take medicine unless I need to, really, really need to. I obviously like to exercise and eat well, and I'm a therapist. I believe in, treating your mind. But I was in so much pain that I didn't care. I was literally asking my husband if he could just cut my leg off. Right. Because my back didn't hurt. It was my leg. So I was like, can you just cut it off? Because then this would be gone, and everybody could mean that wouldn't help. And
it's frustrating when the surgeon says, it's just, because you're like, because in your mind you're going, here's the piece of tissue pushing on the nerve. If you could just go in there, I'm cool with a couple little notches in my back, like scars, like just take it out and I can get back to life. What most are smart about though, don't you agree, is like my surgeon looked at me and he goes, you don't understand. This is not bread and butter. We're micro millimeters away from your spinal cord and your nerves.
Yeah.
And while we're really good at this now compared to like a decade ago, I would rather you just wait. And actually, I walked out with hope, but also a little angry. And my mother-in-law not been with me that day, and she was with me because my wife was trying to run our practice and our life, and I couldn't do anything. And he looked at me on the way out, and I remember he'll never forget. He just goes, "Suck it up, Buttercup." That was the last conversation I had with the surgeon, and he was right. Just need a little more. So when you get told no, and you have to go home and do the things that you've already been doing with Dr. Drew, and with some of the other things you've been doing, like your mind goes to a dark place, doesn't it?
Yep. And Drew was honest with me when he got the MRI results back. He said, he brought me in there. He showed me the pictures. He said, Mandy, he's like, this is what it is. He was like, I'm not going to lie to you. He was like, most people, he said, most of these can heal on their own with time and inflammation reduction and blah, blah, and exercises and stuff. He said, but most people will take 9 to 12 months for recovery. 9 to 12 months.
Totally
I'm
agree.
looking at him. Yep. I'm looking at him going, 9 to 12 months. Wait. 9 to 12 months. I had 9 to 12 months felt like 9 to 12 years. And, I'm a runner. I've been lucky enough not to have major stress fractures and stuff because I do take care of I do strength training on all that stuff. I guess I've just been lucky. But a lot of stress fracture injuries and stuff come to you with 6-week recoveries, right. So I was going 9 to 12 months. And then he's like, then he followed that up with, but you're in peak physical condition. You do what you're told when it comes to rehab, it comes to the exercises. You can come see me. I will, help speed this along as much as we can. He's like, I do think that you will recover much faster than that typical time frame, but that is the average. So that is what he told me. So when you Google, like I did this, right? When you Google disc herniation, you will see Dr. Google tell you 6 weeks. That is a lie. Yeah. That is a lie. Mm-hmm. Everybody on there.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Lies. So, anyways, he was very honest, but he did say he thought I would recover faster. He didn't give me like in 3 months or nothing like that, right. But it was like, I do think you'll recover faster. But
still your mind goes into a place now, right? Where you're like, I got to get ready for this long haul thing. And I can barely still sit, much less walk and stand. And now I'm like, how do I get the kids? Immediately, and it's depressing.
It's so hard. And I got an injection. So I got first selective nerve root injection, which is a specific type of steroid injection. I know there are several different kinds out there. That was the kind that they thought was best for me to try to get that inflammation down immediately on the leg. I did have some weird side effects from the oral steroid. I did not like taking them, but I did because I was literally willing to do anything. I did not have weird side effects from the shots, thankfully. Like it didn't do any of the weird steroid shot. Everyone's different. But I did that first selective nerve root injection that same day I met with the neurosurgeon. He pulled strings too and got me in right away for that shot. I'm forever grateful for that because I went in tears. The first injection hurt really, 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 really bad. Like it literally felt like somebody like lit my whole right leg on fire with a match. But I woke up. They numb you. So I was good for about 2 hours and then I woke up and the pain came back. 5 days later, I literally woke up in the morning sleeping on my back because I hadn't woken up in the middle of the night screaming in pain. I was sleeping on my back. I was so happy because I hadn't been able to do that in 3 weeks. Yeah. So I'm not trying to speed up my talk, but I over the course of after that first injection, I had a little bit of hope because I had pain reduction. Right. And, once I had that pain reduced a little, then I went back. I was obviously going in to see Drew at this point 3 days a week. He was doing very passive type, rehab on me, cold laser, to the TENS unit, decompression type stuff. I was doing McKenzie type of back exercises, but they were very simple, very simple. Like literally
basic.
Very basic.
Very basic.
And I was encouraged to get in the pool because obviously I'm a swimmer, but I wasn't able to swim yet. So I was encouraged to get in the pool and just walk, or even just stand and like hang on a pool noodle. Thankfully, I guess I got hurt in summer. So our neighborhood pool was open and, you know, I could take the girls down there. But I'll tell you guys, I will not forget the first day. You know, everyone's encouraging me to go for short walks. Our neighborhood pool is a quarter of a mile away from our house. And I was walking with my daughter and I had to stop about no less than 5 times on our walk to the pool because I would have such bad pain in my leg.
Yeah.
And I would stop I would just say, hang on, give mommy a second. And I would stand there for a second and go like these deep breaths of, and I'm sitting there talking to myself going, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. And then I would walk a little further. And I would walk all the way to the pool, and then I would get there and I would lay on my stomach, which was like heaven on earth. And then I would get in the pool and just stand there and let the water decompress my spine. But, you know, did I let that pain stop me? No, I just went a little further the next day, and I went a little further. And then lo and behold, you know, that was in May. So it's October 7th. I have not had surgery. I have had 3 of the injections now since then, continued with my physical therapy and chiropractor care. And I ran a mile yesterday outside. So,
I love it.
You know, and it did not happen overnight. It has been so, and I am not pain free. I am not, you know, I'm not pain free. My leg still hurts in some shape or form every day. But I am definitely, I mean, you guys, I can stand up on my toes. I can run a mile outside. I can run for up to 40 minutes on the treadmill. I can ride my bike for up to 2 hours inside. I can swim, you know, a mile. And, you know, so I have so much strength back. The numbness is gone in my leg and my toes and my foot, which is why I still haven't had surgery. I need it. I'm getting better still. Yeah. I'm still not back to race mode. I have not registered for any races at this point. I fully plan on racing next year, but I'm not permitting myself right now because I don't want to feel like pressured or I don't want to feel like a failure if I don't meet that goal, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So let's go back because obviously everybody's story is different. I mean, we work with people all the time in the office, and you know, whether people just went all natural or they did surgery or we talk about 2 things all the time in our office, and that is the first thing we have to do is restore micromotion and those little movements that each vertebra have along with each other. And that's truly the reason why I think chiropractic is so important. But also we handle inflammation, and everybody's different. So I did podcasts with people on essential oils, CBD oils, all kinds of stuff. But even 2 injections, I had to have one. Steroids, all that, and the hills and the valleys of where you go through with chronic pain or acute into chronic pain can be overwhelming. So here's what's really interesting to me. When I came back, and this is where I want you to get into like how you mentally like went through this, because when I came back into the office after being gone for about 3-4 months, the first question all the patients were asking me were like, "You're the chiropractor." Well, why are you having back problems? You know, and I'm like, well, if you cut me, I'll bleed red as well. Like, I'm still human and I still hurt myself. But it was like, wait a minute. Yeah, wait, I'm supposed to be. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. I'm a human. And I had to really come to grips with the fact that, like, while I'm good at helping people, I did not help myself. And it was hard emotionally to take it first, feeling like almost like, why would anybody ever give their body in a way to help them to you, Matt, because you can't even help yourself. And so as a psychotherapist trained with mind things and going through these hills and valleys of finding out this isn't going to be better on Saturday, you aren't going to run next week, you have 9 to 12 months in front of you. Surgeons saying, I can clearly see your life is destroyed right now, but I'm not going to do what you want me to do. To having a really good Saturday, to then waking up the next day and feeling like complete shit again, pardon my language, but that's what the truth is. So because everybody that I interact with has this thing in common with chronic pain, and that is, this is me forever. Like there's like that glimmer of hope can be dashed in an instant when that zinger goes down the leg again. Talk us through the mind. Talk us through why the mind has to be important, because so many people have emailed me about today going, but everybody tells me it's in my head. And I'm like, no, it's not in your head, but the healing has to come and start with your head. So can you kind of elaborate the next few minutes on that with you, and then just
in general,
nuggets for people, throw out nuggets.
So, when you are in that initial thing, and I felt this too, you feel overwhelmed with the feelings that you're having. For me, it was fear, fear that I was going to lose a big, huge part of my life, fear that I was going to lose a part of my identity, of how I've, besides triathlon, even before I got into triathlon, I was teaching fitness classes. I was, on the side, outside of psychotherapy. And so that was really scary for me. And then on top of that, when I realized I couldn't drive my car to take my kids to their sport practice, I was like, I am a very independent woman. And that was just like, it was like mind boggling to me. I was scared to death, and I was grasping at any hope. Anyone I wanted Drew so bad to just come in and say, Mandy, you're gonna be better next week. Just hang in there. And he couldn't do that. He's not a magician. The surgeon, I just wanted him to tell me like, okay, Mandy, we're gonna go in, we're gonna cut it out. You're gonna be all better in this much time. And he didn't do that. And part of me was a little annoyed because I thought he could, but at the same time, in retrospect, I respect him because I think he's a good surgeon, because he didn't want to cut into my back if he didn't have to, and take those risks if he didn't have to. He saw a very healthy young woman who's never had issues, spine issues before, sitting in front of him, and the last thing he wanted to do was put her, do that right away. So I felt a huge mix of emotions. You guys, I cried every single day for at least a month. And it wouldn't even be just about my back. Like, people would say hi and I could tear up. I'm not dumb. I can recognize signs of depression when I see them. And I am a therapist. I treat it. But that being said, I did not let myself get into a full depression. I didn't. And I'll tell you why. I didn't let myself get there because I could see like the fear and that sadness for those few weeks. And then the other part of my brain was going, you have the power to decide how you're going to respond to this. I can't control that I got hurt. Okay. And it didn't do me any good to go, well, what could I have done differently? It didn't matter now. Right. Because all I had in front of me was what was happening and what happened. And what I had is I talked to all the experts. I talked to people I trusted and who they referred me to. Right. And I went forward with what I felt was good for me in my life, in my situation. And in terms of, my mindset, I would wake up every day and I would say, what can I do today? What can I do today? Drew told me to get in the pool and do pool walking, and that will help me. Okay, I'm going to go to the pool, and I would get up and I would take that quarter mile walk, and it would take me 30 minutes to do it, but I would get there. Right. And then I would get in the water and I might feel a little bit better that day. Right. And then I would go home, and maybe that night it sucked. Right. And I would let myself feel those feelings. I never, so many people will tell you guys when you're going through something hard, just hang in there, keep a positive mind, stay positive. It's all going to be, and I wanted to punch him in the face. If one more person tells me to stay positive, I'm going to punch him in the face. Not really, I'm not violent, but you feel that way. And because it is not that easy to stay positive. And so I took a different approach. And what I tell my clients when I see them, when they come to me for, it may not even be, it's usually not physical pain. It's usually emotional pain. But when they come to me and I'm like, I might just say to them, that must really hurt. And nobody's ever said that to them before. And just having that validation that it hurts can do amazing things for you, to go, thank you. Right? Thank you. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you want to like stay in this like lowland forever, because if you do, you won't, it's hard and hard to get out. And so now that doesn't mean it's like this. I mean, it's just like weight loss.
Always hills and valleys everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere. And so I would just think, and I always have to, I still have to remind myself. I was telling someone yesterday, they were like, well, how was that run yesterday? I said, well, it was good, except, my leg kind of hurt. Like the back of my leg started hurting when I was outside, and that's kind of frustrating. And then I'm like, but Mandy, you ran outside on, like outside with the air, and you haven't done that in 5 months. And
right.
You did that. Notice how you did that and how good that felt.
So would you say, like with some of these people that we work with, and is this idea that being true to who you are in this moment. So like when you had that pain where you just wanted your husband to cut your leg off, right? And I know that pain, and I mean, people have reached out to me and said, I want to die. I get it, but in that moment, like it's okay to own that feeling. Like I'm hurting right now.
Yes.
Absolutely. Nothing anybody else is going to say right now is going to matter. And people say the dumbest stuff to people in pain, right? Like you just meant like the stay positive crap, right? Like we could probably do an entire podcast on the stupid shit people say to someone who's hurting, right? But the truth is like owning it, but then getting out of it. And I remember Louise Hay one time in a book that she wrote talking about like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated and pissed off. But like she said, like literally and I'm going to transition this because you shared some science with me before we got on that we got to go to right now because this is because this is the part of it is this idea that after about 10 seconds of being frustrated and pissed and angry, you literally change your physical body. So while it's okay to validate and what you were saying in that moment, like understand the hill and the valley, you can't stay there quick. You got to move because then you change your body. And you shared something to me earlier about the way that each emotion can affect inflammation.
Yes.
And we know that that's the enemy, not even the disc, the inflammation. Yeah. So talk me through what you shared to me before we went live, because it was awesome and right where you were talking about.
So, the science behind emotional trauma, when we go through an emotional trauma, abuse, we are through a traumatic event. There's a lot of that right now, unfortunately. And then, childhood abuse and neglect, I don't need to go into all of those bad stuff that I listen to on a daily basis, but they're very, very real, right? And when that happens to you, your brain literally changes. There is science, there is neurobiology, scans of the brain that shows how it changes our brains, right? It literally lights up differently because the different chemicals that are fired, okay? And depending on how old you are, when you're young, when you're a kid, it's actually affected differently than when you're an adult. I won't go into all that, but there's a lot of science there behind emotional trauma. The interesting part for me is that I've done a lot of research on this because I am a trauma-based therapist, and I do eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. Say that 45 times in a row.
Can't do it.
EMDR.
Yep.
And literally we do bilateral movement, left, right, left, right, left, right, where we stimulate the left and right hemisphere of the brain while we're processing a traumatic event or traumatic memory or traumatic feeling that we have. Think about that. Left, right, right, left, right, left, right. Right? Like it's a physical manifestation of the emotional state. Okay.
Right.
That's what we have to do to get the brain to get unstuck. Okay. And so in saying that, when we go through, and then not only that, but science shows that when you have emotional traumas, like over and over and over again, you literally like legitimately get physically ill. Like you are more likely to develop cancer. You are more likely to have autoimmune disorders. You are more likely to get the flu because of all. And that's not something you've done to yourself. I want to make that clear. Okay. But there is a clear link between emotional trauma and physical health. Okay.
And Mandy, real quick. So like an injury like ours.
Yes.
How quickly can that physical moment where we both had this weird sensation of waking up with leg pain, how fast does that physical become emotional for us?
Very quickly, because it's painful. I mean, I never truly, honestly, I have family that have chronic pain. Okay. I have friends that have chronic pain, and I always felt bad, but I don't think I truly, it changes your understanding when you're going through it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I do think it can affect you differently depending on your emotional well-being at the time too. And that's, again, I don't want to, this isn't anybody's fault, but if you are already going through emotional trauma, then, and you wake up like we did, you're going to have a harder time coming out of it than like I did. Does that make sense?
It does, because I tend to find that, and I do ask this in a joking way. I feel like laughing is so important, right? When we're trying to heal, and I have yet to meet and all the people that I take care of, I have yet to meet people with these significant traumas like ours, like this herniation stuff, where I look them in the eye and go, hey, was this a really good time in your life for this to happen? And every single time everybody says, absolutely not. My life is, nobody says I had everything and then this went away. I mean, there's always something. It's a spouse, it's finances, it's a job, it's a relation. Something's going on. So then you couple them together and it's on steroids now. Yeah. And I don't mean the kind we took. I mean, like, it's just crazy. Yeah.
And stress is 100%. I teach this when I teach the trauma class in the Indiana University of Social Work, college level, master's level class. And I teach this topic. Stress increases our cortisol levels in our body. That is proven. It is science. That isn't whatever. Mm-hmm. That is proven. And when our cortisol levels get all junky because of stress, that increases the inflammation in our body. Okay, you guys. I mean, and then we're here, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm still got a crap load of inflammation flowing through my body. So because of this, and I was just telling Matt before we got on this call, he asked me how I was feeling, and I was like, well, my leg has been bugging me a little bit the last 24 hours, but it was a pretty, I've had a lot of like little stressful things going on lately, and I know that has a part. I have heard, and I don't want to get too off topic, but I have heard whenever I've been talking to people that have going through these herniations, women who've noticed that like around their time of the month that their pain is worse. Right. Well, think about what's going on in the female body during our hormone changes, right? So there's so much stuff there that, no sleep. Somebody just commented too.
Absolutely.
In terms of when you don't sleep, we know this. No sleep, everything gets worse. Anxiety gets worse. If you have any instant, like little bit of depression, that you battle on a daily basis, it's going to get worse when you don't sleep. Anxiety, 125% gets worse when you don't sleep. Guess what else gets worse when you don't sleep? Physical health, right? So
absolutely.
It's all connected.
So let me ask you what you think about this, and then I want to throw out some strategy as you started talking about it. So maybe a month into my herniation trauma back in probably February of 2015, my mom gave me a book that she had read called by Richard Sarno, who, believe it or not, is a back surgeon, and it's called Healing Back Pain. And I recommend everybody read it because he really makes it very simple to understand. And what he was talking about, this idea that he would look at MRIs and people would come in with like the tiniest little herniation ever, but their entire life was wrecked. And then he talked about how like people would come in for something completely different, but he'd see this ginormous MRI or herniation on their MRI, and they had zero symptomatology. And one of the things he said after like 50 years of doing something like this was that there was such a huge emotional component driving the pain behind herniation. We're not by any ways making light of the fact that one tissue is pushing on another tissue. However, he was talking about, so I remember reading that and going, it makes sense, but why? And he explained it very simply. The conscious mind, like the ones we're using right now to have a conversation, drives and fixes feelings and emotions, and it's there to work on relationships. Whereas the subconscious mind, which is what you were alluding to, is actually there to fix the body. And what we've done as humans, and just now this time we're worried about terrorism and politics and we're also living in fear that we've told our subconscious to handle our checkbook and our marriage instead of actually handling our low back. And so his technique was start literally, and like what you had said, start literally telling your conscious mind to handle the problems of your life to allow the subconscious to heal. And what you're telling me is that between these emotional things, we're overriding. So like whether we have trauma from childhood, we're carrying into these herniations, we're overriding the subconscious ability to handle inflammation and to get our spine working again.
Yeah.
Agree?
Well, and the body keeps the score. That is
always
my very favorite trauma reference book. If you ever enter, it's it's the best one out there. Bessel von Cork. And the body keeps the score. It keeps the score when it comes to, even like people come to my office, things have happened to them when they were babies. They don't have conscious memory of that. But their body remembers, and they wonder why they get triggered when something happens to them, right? Like, why do I get mad about that? And it's not their fault. I keep referencing, like, it's not my fault that I have this going on in my back. Okay. It just happened. It just happened. It's not anybody's fault. It sucks. I don't wish it on anyone. I really wish that it didn't happen and that I could be running this marathon I was signed up for in 3 weeks, but I can't. Right.
Right.
So, but staying in that wallowing land is not helping me heal. So, the body keeps the score. Reducing stress in your life will help you reduce inflammation in your body. It helps you, and you have to, and, there's a lot of aspects to this. This is not a one size fits all, just like we've talked about how different treatments work for different patients,
Right.
The injection has worked for me, helped me. It has not made me pain free. So if anybody's watching this, the injections helped my pain level. They did not make me wake up magically and be pain free. Right. Some people that happens to. That's awesome.
Right.
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 Some people, they do nothing, and that happens. You don't know. It's uncertainty. Life is uncertain, and I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do, but there are a lot of aspects. But I encourage whoever may be watching this and trying to, figure out that mindset piece, to pay attention to it, because it does matter. And whether or not you had trauma before you got hurt, emotional trauma or physical trauma that is making it worse, or whether or not you just, I don't know, nobody has a perfect life, or whether or not you just woke up and, ow, I can't move. What the heck? You have to talk to yourself and let yourself feel your feelings, make sure you have a good support system and figure out what can I do today? Remind yourself you're present. The stress relieving activities, the mindfulness activities I encourage are, if you can meditate, awesome. I am not you guys, I'm a therapist. I don't meditate well because my brain is always going like a million miles a minute. Okay. Right. I'm too busy, but I can do some grounding exercises like it's my job. Okay.
What are those? What are the ones you do?
So it is my job. So I do lead people through this. So just a simple, take 5 seconds and close your eyes and take some big, deep breaths and just notice your breath. Notice where you are. Listen to the sounds around the room and just remind yourself that you are right here, right now. Okay. You are not in the past when you woke up and you couldn't move. You are not in your childhood home, if that's what comes up. Right. You are not worrying about what is Mandy gonna be able to race next year? What if I can't race next year? What if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? What if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? That doesn't help me right now. Okay. Yeah. Right now, doing pretty good. Okay. So, and it doesn't heal you. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's like, oh, well, now I'm all better. I don't know. It doesn't, but it does just bring you back down to yourself and let you go, okay, what can I do today? And what do I need? Right. Listen to yourself, ask yourself, what do I need? And, I know that both you and I have been on the no surgery train, but I want to make it clear that everybody that chooses to have surgery, if it helps you, I'm so happy for you. I don't play the blame, this better, that, but
exactly.
You still have to work up here because you're going to wake up from the surgery. You're still going to do the physical therapy. Got news for you. Okay. Because you're still, and I know you talked about this in your other podcast, you still have to teach yourself how to move. You guys cannot spend your whole life not bending, twisting, and lifting. It doesn't work that way in life. I had to unload the groceries today. Who else is going to do it? The 150-pound St. Bernard, she doesn't unload the groceries. Okay. I have to unload the groceries. So there are just things that you have to learn to do. You have to learn to bend, lift, and twist safely, appropriately, the way you should have before you got hurt, right? You have to learn to take care of your mind or you're not going to feel good.
So Britta, and this is awesome because this is the transition I want to make, talked about gratitude. You had talked about it earlier, even just walking outside, being grateful for, the ground and the air. And listen, I mean, this is not one of those where we're going to sing Kumbaya and everything's going to be okay. But the idea of changing the physical body's response to our mind, literally I grabbed the first journal I could walk to and got and just started writing down things I was grateful for. And I can remember being so bitter and angry. The first thing I wrote down on the very first day was that I still had socks on because mine was in January. So it was middle winter. Grateful for socks, grateful for a comforter on my bed, grateful for, and you just start realizing, like, as bad as this sucks right now, like there is a lot. And again, we're not trying to tell people like fairies are going to show up and everything's going to be okay. It's just you telling your brain in that moment, go handle the problem. Go handle the problem. I'm separating you again and allowing you to go back to work. And that was, for me, was the biggest thing. I had to go through steps of forgiveness for traumas that I had learned about. I mean, Dr. Sarno was very clear who's pissed you off, who has done this, and just going through those steps of forgiveness and that. And then, so I think those are two things that you had mentioned that I did. Let me ask you this one though, because this one people don't talk about a lot, but I always coach people on doing this too. What about laughter? I mean, we forget because we're so bitter all the time. And Facebook, I love the pages that you and I interact on, but people are super upset and bitter and angry, and they kind of have a right to be. But the truth is, laughter is, I mean, Proverbs talks about laughter being a great medicine. I actually watched all of the old roasts, like with Don Rickles and all those guys, which probably would be politically incorrect nowadays, but and I laughed so much. And I do. So talk about laughter with what you believe.
I mean, they know it when you laugh and you're doing things you enjoy in general. Your brain chemicals, you have different brain chemicals that are released. And it's the same thing. Like for me, I'm one of those crazy people that loves to exercise, and so. And science shows when you exercise, you get this big chemical release in your brain, these big endorphins that make you feel better. And that's going to reduce that stress level because your cortisol levels are going to go down. Everything's going to feel better. It's not going to be this magical, oh, I'm healed from my disc herniation, but it certainly helps move you along that path. It doesn't hurt. And, I have had people kept saying, you guys, I went to France in July. Okay.
Yeah.
I got hurt at the that last week of May and 1st of June. I got on an airplane July 1st and flew from Indiana to France. Okay.
Yeah.
Those people think that is completely insane that I did that because I was still numb, like a lot, and I couldn't do a lot of things. Here's the thing. The doctor said it was okay that I went. I did make sure I had medical clearance from the surgeon, not just my chiropractor, who I think is great, but I still made sure that I had surgical, clearance from him. He's like, yeah, go, and here's the thing. I had this vacation planned for over a year with my family, and I was really looking forward to it. And I was determined not to let this, stop me from doing something I really wanted to do. As long as it was cleared from the doc. No, sir, I'm not trying to.
You weren't unsafe about it.
No.
Right.
And did it hurt? Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sitting on an airplane for that long, not comfortable when you can't sit. And I was sat like this. Oh, you can't see me, but I literally was like this.
Yeah. One butt cheek up in the air.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I got up and I stood and I walked around the airplane a lot. I'm not going to lie. I took some pain medication.
Sure.
Certainly helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and I got through it, and I'm so glad I went. And we walked and we walked and we walked, and there were days that I was like, can we get on the subway? Because my leg is throbbing. Okay. Right. And we would do that. And I had my little portable TENS unit. I brought that with me. It certainly is not as powerful as the one I use when I'm at my chiropractor's office, but it was better than nothing. Right. And I was doing my physical therapy exercises in the hotel gyms.
Yeah.
I was getting on the elliptical machine because by that point they told me I could get on the elliptical machine. And so I would do that and I would walk. And I'm telling you guys, when I came home from France, I was happy because I got to see the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Okay. I had waited 37 years to see the Eiffel Tower, and I got to see my kids experience that.
Yeah.
And that made me happy.
And what's funny, and agree with me or disagree with me, those feel-good chemicals are stronger than our pain chemicals, which is why harnessing them more frequently is better, because if you have a whole bunch of pain, but then you can flood that with the feel-good, the endorphins and the it's going to win. And that's up here. I can't tell you how many people are come back and go, I feel like crap again now that I'm back. But while I was gone, I was doing pretty good. Well, your mind doesn't understand where you are anymore. You're busy enjoying yourself. And we got to figure out how to do that here and now in the moment, like you said.
And that comes down to self-care too. I mean, gosh, I talk about this even outside of trauma with people, I mean, our culture, we work a lot, right? And you can easily get burned out, especially if you're in a helping profession.
Yeah.
It is really, 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 really easy to get burned out. And when you start not wanting to do your work, when you start having a hard time getting up and going to do stuff, it's a good sign that you need to like do some more self-care, go on a vacation, take some time off, you know, do stuff you enjoy. It may not be exercise. For me, like that's a big coping skill, but it's not for everyone, right? If you like to read, you know, if you like to garden, if you like to go see movies, but don't, you know, when you stay, especially with these back issues, I mean, trust me, everyone, like I understand how dark it can get, where you're like, I can't even go to the, I mean, I literally forgot like at times what was happening to me, because I would be distracted and happy.
Yep. It's amazing how that happens.
Having 2 kids really helps keep you busy. That I will say. If you don't have, I mean, I don't want to encourage all the childbirth. Really helps.
Yeah.
But sometimes I would,
As
like,
a strategy,
forget,
have children.
like, yeah, but I would like forget. Like I remember being at my parents for dinner, like on a Sunday night, and we do that a lot. And like we all made dinner. We went to go sit down, and I was like, oh wait, I can't sit.
Right.
You know, because I was like, I had forgotten for a time that my leg hurt, because I was off doing stuff that made me happy. And then everyone was like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, well, I'm not mad at anyone. I just forgot that I can't sit without being in excruciating pain. So I'm going to stand up over here and eat my food, you know. But I would literally forget. I mean, that was nice though, because I could kind of forget about that for a while, you know.
So let me ask you a couple things as we wrap up here, because we've got some cool stuff. I'll put all the show notes on the podcast on YouTube and on the audio podcast. And our interaction probably won't go live until like Monday of next week. Audio wise, YouTube will be today later, and I'll put all the show notes. Like you mentioned, a couple great books I think are super important. We're going to give people access to your blog and the things you're talking about. But I want to break it down here, because I think it's really, really clear how important the mind is. And again, we're not telling people that it's in their head. We're telling them strategies, and hopefully they listen through this enough where they understand how their mind can override their body, and then they can reprogram that. But okay, so here's my one of two role plays for you as a psychotherapist in dealing with herniation. So someone emails you later today or Facebook messages you today, and they literally are in that first 3-6 months of what we went through, and they're like, I need 3 things from the psychotherapy standpoint to help me because of the misery I'm in right now. What 3 things are you telling this person now remember, this is that acute person that's, you know, like just happened up to like where you're just coming. So what 3 things did you harness? Where can you tell them to go? What do you want them to do?
So the first thing I would tell them to do is take a big deep breath. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt or that it doesn't suck, but take a big deep breath and just acknowledge how you're feeling. Just acknowledge it. Just be like, man, I'm really mad, you know, or I'm really sad, or I'm really scared, or maybe all the above. I was all the above. Okay?
Right.
Acknowledge those feelings. If you do not have support in your life, whether it is a spouse or a significant other, whether it is a good friend, whether it is a family member or anybody. I mean, I do think that you need to utilize your resources, especially in those darker times. Okay. Nobody should have to be alone. Okay. This isn't just a suck it up buttercup moment, as Matt was told. I mean, it is in some ways, but you do need help. Okay. And it's okay. It's okay to need help. And while I did a lot of things for myself, I certainly leaned on those that care for me. And I think that is really important, to give yourself that permission. You're going through something very, very difficult, not only physically, but emotionally.
Right.
And it's a trauma in itself. Okay.
Gotcha.
And that is to be recognized. And if it doesn't, you're going to spiral down real quick. Right. And so I would certainly, use your resources, take a deep breath and let yourself acknowledge those feelings, allow yourself to be there, but then focus on what you can do. Okay. What can I do right now? And it's going to look different for everybody. Okay. I have read I read so many different, even the same herniation as mine, and the symptomology may be different, Drew told me day 2 that the pain would leave my leg and travel up to my back, and then my leg wouldn't hurt anymore. That still hasn't happened. Okay.
It will. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I just kind of laugh because he's like, how's your back? I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
So, and it just, everyone's different. So,
right.
But just say, what can I do right now? Well, Mandy ran a mile. I can't do that. So I might as well just go lay down and do nothing. No, stop. Okay.
Right.
Don't compare yourself. Get out of the comparison trap. Don't believe everything you read on Google because it's not all true. And just, don't believe everything you read in support groups, guys. They're not all, it's not all true. And just because somebody may have had to have this, really like complex surgery does not mean that you will need to. Right. Okay.
So when you say focus on what you can do, you're talking about like you ran a mile the other day and you but I mean, I like remember being miserable going, I'm never going to, lift weights again. And I love that. But right now in this moment, what I can do is I can go get in the shower. Yep. And that means that I can still get up and I can literally walk in the other room and I can watch, when the girls were younger, a Disney movie with them. Which, if I wasn't hurt, I probably didn't have time to watch a Disney movie with them.
But you had time to hang out with them.
Right. So it's that mindset of like, maybe this is not how I want it to be, but this is what I can do right now. And then go do that. Go do that, because that's a feeling of accomplishment. We check it off the list. As little as it was amazing. And you built on something.
And I would do stuff like that too. I mean, at first, I remember people going, well, what can you do that's not physical? Because I'm such a physical person. All my stuff I like to do involves physical activity, which was very limited at the beginning. Right. And they're like, well, what can you do that you like that doesn't involve that? And it was hard. I'll be honest, because what's another thing I like to do besides physical activity? I like to read. I'm a big reader. Yeah. But I couldn't lay on my back for a while. Mm-hmm. It took me about a month to be able to lay on my back. Mm-hmm. And so I was stuck on my stomach. It's really hard to read a book like this. Right. And so that was frustrating to me. And so, but I would find the little things, I would, talk to the girls more. When I finally figured out, I'm like, I'm going to walk to the pool. I'm going to walk that 1/4 mile to the pool and then sit there, and they can swim, and I can be there while they're enjoying their summer. Yeah. And then it progressed from there. Today I think I can walk, a 1/2 mile, and it was little bits like that. I would do things like, trying to think, like I went to dinner when the first night I remember my parents being like, you guys want to come down for dinner? And I had a ride, and my mom's like, but if you're not feeling up to it, it's okay. And I'm like, no, I want to go. Right. I wanted to be around the people I love. Right. And so she helped, drive me, or my husband drove us. But I couldn't sit. Right. And so I had to literally lay on her floor, but it's my mom. So she was fine with that. But I was happy to be there because, I was completely like in this kumbaya, happy-go-lucky mood. No. Okay, I wasn't, guys. I went to my daughter's dance recital before that first injection had kicked in. Okay, I remember because my injection, I got it on like a Wednesday, and her recital was on Saturday. The injection had not kicked in yet. I was still taking hydrocodone every 4 hours. Okay. Yeah. Plus everything else they would let me take, and nothing was really working. I just kept taking it, hoping that something would help. And again, my husband had to help me get dressed. I could not put pants on. Okay. Yeah. I could not do that motion. It was so humiliating. I'm like, he hasn't had to do this since I was in labor. And even then I was the one that was going, stop touching me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And here I am going, I can't bend down. Can you help me? Okay. Right. Very vulnerable. So
push through things. Yes. You had to push through it.
I mean, and I don't want to again, don't push through unsafely, but I don't regret going to her recital. Yeah. Her face was worth it. I had to stand up in the back of the auditorium and watch it, but I was there. Okay. And it would have been so easy, you guys. That was 1 week after I had gone out. Right. Okay. Right. I was acute, awful. Right. And I found a way to get there.
I love it. And Britta brought up, she's been doing some awesome points here, but focusing on other people. And I can remember that how important that is, because when you're serving another person, the chemistry, Wayne Dyer used to talk about the most amount of feel-good chemicals would actually come from observing people serve other people, not even the people doing it, but that a huge amount of great feel-good chemicals came when we serve other people. And it's amazing. You were talking about making dinner for family, and like, I totally didn't even think about how much pain I was in. Exactly. And so I think that number one, you said, I'll just reiterate, you said, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and just acknowledge how you feel right now. That is huge, because that separates that conscious and subconscious. It literally forces them apart, which is what we need. And I love that you said, just be aware of your emotions and be okay with it. You know, everybody tells you, don't be like that. Yes, be like that. Two, you said utilize all your resources. And I think, and like, listen, you and I are both resources. I'm fine with people reaching out to me, but reach out to the people around you. Who knows this person? Who knows that person? You know, I see a lot of stuff on Facebook pages about how horrible chiropractors are. And you know what? Some are. Who cares? I'm not. I like to think I'm pretty good. People get better, right? Like, but the thing is, like, who knows somebody, who's had somebody, who's got this, who can get me in there? I love that. You said, focus on what you can do as that final strategy, and just do it. Like, and you're not talking about like, you know, heavy lifting of weights. You're talking about like, instead of laying here going, I can't do this, like, go to the kids' game. It's going to hurt, but you're going to hurt laying there. Go to the kids' game, flood the endorphins.
I might as well do what I love if I'm going to hurt anyway.
Right. That's what I wrote down, those three things. And those I'm taking with me, because I don't do very good at number one, that you said, just the acknowledging my emotions and my feelings. I'm not good at that. I need to get better at that. Utilizing my resources. I've been blessed because as a chiropractor, I was able to reach out. So I did do that, and focus on what you can do. And I can sit here, and I bet if Jessie was sitting right here next to me, she would tell you I did a terrible job of getting my ass out of bed and just going and doing the things that I could have done. Like, I couldn't work anymore. She did that, but I probably did a terrible job. And I wish you had told me that, because I wish I had known I wasn't going to get myself any worse. And instead, what I probably would have done was would have got myself better faster, because my mind would have been in a place of enjoyment with pain versus frustration and pain. Am I wrapping that up correctly, what you just said?
And
I love it.
And in turn, I feel like, I know that doing those things does reduce your stress level, because it's doing stuff you enjoy, which in turn reduces your inflammation in your body.
There you go. Yeah. And that's always a win-win. And I love it. So listen, what I want to do is wrap up this thing here, because this has been super informative. And we went over an hour, but you know what? There's no, that's okay. There's nuggets in here for days. And so I'll wrap it up. Obviously, with podcasts, people can listen to, I listen to mine at 1.5 times speed anyway. But and people can do that, but I would encourage people to listen to this stuff, and I will put all the books you've said, I'll put all that on the show notes, so they don't have to like try and find it through there. But this has been like awesome, man. Like, listening to you talk about your last 6 months, what you chose to do, how you chose to move. Listen, I'm going to give you one more minute just to wrap this thing up, and you know, what's the best thing that you can now. Listen, whether someone has been 15 years in pain or 15 minutes, go for it. Tell them something.
Just don't give up hope. You know, I mean, I've heard Matt say this before, like, nobody gets to tell you can't heal. He said,
that's my tagline. Yeah.
And it's his tagline. And I love it, because you can, and it may take longer depending on where you are in your journey, whether it's emotional trauma, physical trauma, or both. But you can. Even emotional trauma, the worst emotional trauma you can imagine, is not finite. It isn't like oh, that's it, I'm screwed, I might as well just succumb to a life of misery. It's not. And anybody that tells you that is, they're wrong. I have, you know, science behind me to show me that. You know, childhood traumas, it doesn't mean does it mean you're more at risk for physical health issues? It does. Does it mean that you are doomed? No. But you do have to do the work, and you have to do the work mind, body connected, right? It's
I love it.
And
I love it.
Just like the discarnation, like, am I doomed to like always being in pain? No, but I do have to do the work, right?
Do the work.
And I do my physical therapy, you guys, every single day, like literally like clockwork. I have therapy bands all over my house so I don't forget, right?
Exactly.
And, I mean, like, I'm that person, you know. Drew doesn't worry about me because he knows I'll do this stuff, right? So, but you have to do it. And when I see people, well, the physical therapy hurts. I know it hurts. It hurts. It hurt when I did it too.
Yeah.
And sometimes it still hurts. But I do it, okay? And you
still
know
does
what?
to me too sometimes.
But the stuff that hurt in May doesn't hurt anymore.
I know.
And the stuff that hurt last week hurts less this week.
I love it.
Because I keep doing it. So
I love it. Hey, where can people find you? How can they reach out to you? How can they learn more about what you're doing? And just throw that out there. And of course, I'll include that in the notes too.
Yeah. So I do have a website if you guys are interested in learning more about what I do. And it is just my name, Mandy Leonards with an S.com. And I have a blog on there. It talks about just the types of therapy I do. And I don't advertise stuff because I'm pretty busy in Indiana, but if you are interested in just talking to me, you can find me on there.
Yeah. And then of course, Facebook, right? You've got your page and people can reach out there.
Through Facebook, so people can always find me there too.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and put that all in the show notes. And guys, this has been awesome, man. I mean, we've talked about all kinds of physical things so far on this podcast, and we've got like 3 more to do this week with physical things, but like none of that matters unless this thing gets in this place where we can believe. And I do tell people all the time that no one gets to tell you that you can't heal. And if you're not healing yet, it's just you guys haven't turned over enough rocks or the right rock, and keep going. And utilize what Mandy said today. Really go into these show notes and understand what she said and start putting those into practice, and good things will happen. So thanks, guys, for joining us on the Pain Sucks podcast. And we are just so honored that you joined us. And we hope that you listen to this. And of course, share it, because if it just sits in your house, then nobody else gets to learn. So share it with everybody, and it's growing, and it's a big movement. And we love everybody. All right, guys, talk to you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.